I'm Caroline Dowd-Higgins. Thank you for listening to Your Working Life, my podcast series featuring thought leaders in the career and personal growth arena. I know that you spend a significant portion of your life at work, so I'm on a mission to provide you with tools, inspiration, and resources so you can enjoy your career and love your life. And I am delighted to welcome a very special friend and colleague to the show today, Sydnie Kohara. Sydnie, welcome to the show.
Oh, Caroline, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here with you.
Well, it is a delight and a joy for me to be showcasing you today, and I want to tell our listening audience all about you. Sydnie Kohara is passionate about helping others and leaders as well as legends tell their stories. She is an Emmy Award-winning international journalist who has covered business news around the world, and she now develops and deploys blended media strategies for a wide range of companies and individuals, taking their stories from the script to the screen and beyond. And Sydnie's communication consulting practice includes strategic messaging and leadership positioning, as well as building executive presence in the digital world. And Sydnie, that is such an important role, and I'm eager for you and I to dive into a juicy conversation. But let's go back to a little bit of the beginning of your career. You've been a journalist for more than 20 years, and it's literally taken you around the world. And you started in Louisiana. So how does a young woman break into the very competitive world of broadcast journalism at the beginning of her career from Louisiana?
Caroline, when I was growing up, and this was the mid 70s when I graduated high school, I remember being in speech class, and I was the one who always sat in the back of the class. I was way too shy to sit in the front. I knew what I wanted to do, but I just was petrified. I could not get in front of people. But I knew I wanted to, I felt like I had something to say, and I wanted to be that kind of person who could speak in front of everyone. And from sitting in the back of the class in high school to not really thinking I was going to college of all things, I wanted to work full time to make money. My family was, my parents were getting a divorce. I thought I'm going to work full time, and I wound up meeting a young woman who has remained my best friend since I was 17 years old, who said, "No, you're going to college. You have to go to college." Of course, she said the reason you need to go to college is so you can date really cute college guys and be a cheerleader. But you know what? Whatever it took, it kept me on a path. It kept me moving. I was never static. I said, no matter what happens in my life, I have to keep moving forward. I really had no safety net that I had to get out there and work. But after 2 years at a small school, I realized I needed to try to live that dream, to say, could I be a broadcaster? Could I be a journalist? Mind you, I have an audio tape of myself when I was in the first 2 years of college, and I had a very Southern accent. I said y'all all the time, and my friend, though, got me into a little small beauty pageant, the Miss Rapides Parish Fair Queen pageant, taught me how to walk, taught me how to interview, and I won this pageant. And I think one of the big things that I remember back then, I was on a little local radio show, and I got a fan letter, my first one, from a woman who used to be a speech teacher in a very tiny town in Louisiana. And she said, "You have a beautiful voice, and you need to use it for something. You need to use it for good." Now, mind you, I had a very strong Southern accent, but there was one person who gave me this inspiration to say, you can do something with your life. And I took that as a reason to change schools, get a degree in journalism, send out a tape. And my first job was in Montgomery, Alabama in 1979, making $135 a week, pretty much doing the same thing I was doing when I was in San Francisco and in Singapore and New York and London, but $135 a week. I could have made more, probably waitressing. But I told myself, you know, I can always go back to school. I can always be a lawyer if that was my second choice. And I just kept myself going. And part of it was I was a little, I would say, ignorant at the time. I didn't know that you weren't supposed to do certain things. That, when I was in school, I didn't know women weren't supposed to go into locker rooms. I just said, okay, I'm going to go cover this story.
I'm here.
I met Bear Bryant at the University of Alabama. I didn't know he hated women in the locker room, but I would go up and I met him and interviewed him. I didn't go into the locker room, but then when he died and a new coach took over who wanted to change things, he wanted a woman to co-host his football shows. And I didn't know that maybe I shouldn't try out. I went out there and I auditioned and I got the job. So I was the first woman, co-host of the University of Alabama football shows. And I just never let people say no. And I tried not to listen too hard to people who said, you can't do this. I just kept going, and I just tried to make the best of any situation and learn as much from the failures as I did successes. And it's taken me around the world.
Literally.
But I never forgot where I grew up and the lessons I learned that, I always say I can date, I can speak to princes and paupers. When the people you grow up, you can learn so much from them. And I've taken that to heart.
Well, I admire your moxie and your pluck too, and your courage and your charisma. So I thank you for that, Sydnie. Sydnie, let's talk now, since you have evolved so much over your career, and you have an extraordinary practice now, a consulting practice that involves strategic messaging and storytelling and grooming leaders. And one of your sweet spots is building executive presence. So tell us more about that.
I love the idea of executive presence, but I think, it's a very, very sort of powerful way to explain that people have this inner strength that they need to show to the world, that everyone, to me, has a story, and everyone needs to know how to tell their own story with clarity and with confidence. And for me, when I look at executive presence, I want to understand who this person is, what they stand for, and why I should care. And so, say like, Caroline, with someone like you, I want to hear your story and your background and understand who you are and what makes you tick and the lessons that you have learned in your life. I always ask people, tell me about where you're from and how you grew up, because it tells me a lot about the person. And I want people to be able to have a commanding presence, whether they're on a stage or they're in front of an employee. But I want them to understand that presence is also about their own personal brand. They are standing there and they need to tell me who they are and what they stand for and why it is important to me, whether I'm doing business with them or they're going to be my friend or that we're going to collaborate together. And what I do is I try to find those stories that tell me about this person and what makes them successful, but also what are they made of? What keeps them resourceful? And I try to find those stories that help them tell their story. People say, I don't have anything to say. I said, you have so much to say.
Oh,
You just don't know it. And especially women. Women, don't really know how to toot their own horn. They can toot it for other people. I'm good at that. And sometimes I'm not good at it for myself. But I just love to hear stories, because in every person, there is this incredible story that tells me so much about who they are.
And I think there's a wonderful foundation in you as a journalist to have that professional curiosity and that ability to be an extraordinary active listener as well. So you can really draw the story out from someone. And as you and I both know, you've got to be seen and heard in this competitive career landscape in order to make an impact.
You do, and there is a very fine line between being seen and heard and shouting over everyone else. I think that you can create a commanding presence, whether it's in person or online, but you really have to do your homework and understand what is going to resonate with, number one, your audience. Who are you? Are you talking to a large group of people? Are you talking to vendors, or are you talking to people at your church, or people your child's teacher? And you understand what the message is and how it is going to resonate with your particular audience. So you need to know your audience. You need to understand exactly what what you're trying to say and the message you're trying to get across. And a lot of it is just thinking about what you're saying and how to say it. And it's doing a little bit of homework to understand who your audience is. The same message does not work for everyone.
So true.
You always have to sort of tweak it just a little bit for the audience or for your the person that you're speaking with.
Sydnie, I know that you really understand the importance of a professional network, and it can include friends and colleagues and certainly professionals in your career scheme and beyond. Walk me through how your network has empowered you and how you've empowered others along your career path.
I look at my network and I really see people who have made such a difference in my life. People, whether it starts with my best friend Melva back in Louisiana, who I still can call, and
Oh,
she
that's
would love
great.
me whether in the times I didn't have a job and the times I was on top of the world reporting from Singapore and doing an evening show to 50 million people in Asia. But it's important for me to have sort of a series of levels of network. You have those friends who will tell you like it is, good or bad, but you can go to them and they know you as a person, and they will offer you the advice that you need to hear when no one else will. You have colleagues who you keep in touch with from different jobs. I have this weekend, I had a dear friend who I met as a reporter 30 years ago in California, who was coming through to visit her family. A photographer who used to work with both of us happened to be in the area, and I got them together. They had not seen each other in almost 30 years. And I just think these are wonderful people that meant so much to me. And really kept me going in the right direction, and to keep up with colleagues and friends like that. And you never know when colleagues are the people who start as your interns or your production assistants or
Right.
are people, is there always a kind word you can say to someone, or you mentor someone? You never know where they're going or where they're going to be one day or how they may help you. And then there are the professionals who you meet, whether they're colleagues or they're equals or other people, to write a kind word. I mean, one of the most important and valuable lessons I learned very early, being from the South, is to write thank you notes. I cannot tell you, Caroline, there have been at least 2 jobs I think I got because I sat down and instead of writing an email, I sent a handwritten thank you note just to say I am grateful for this opportunity and to meet you and to be able to go back and keep in touch with them. And people, I think, are really, I think they're really impressed when you take the time to say you were important as a person. You're not just another email.
I
And
agree. Yeah.
and I have created networks of just people I meet. I will go when I was younger and single and I wanted to go to dinner. I wouldn't sit at home because there was no one else to go with. I would go into a restaurant. Nice restaurants always have little bars or something where people can wait. I would plop myself down, eat a beautiful meal, and usually there were other professionals just like me in a strange town who wanted to strike up a conversation. And I have met some of the most interesting people sitting and talking to strangers and curious about their life. And the people that I've kept in touch with, it's just amazing the stories you can hear from people who may be total strangers, but who are just like you, and just they're smart, they're talented, and you can always learn something from someone. And I always say you can always make a new friend.
So true. It harkens back to the Keith Ferrazzi book, Never Eat Alone, right? Always welcome others to your table, wherever that table may be.
Absolutely.
Sydnie, let's talk about women, because I know you have a sweet spot in your heart for grooming and developing women. Certainly in your practice, you work with men as well. But what are some of the bits of wisdom and advice that you've gleaned over the years that you want to share with other women, especially women who might be considering or contemplating a career change or a career reinvention? Because as you and I both know, things change in our professional and our personal lives.
Absolutely, Caroline. I think the one thing I would tell women is to, number one, you have to approach it like a business, like a term paper or research paper. You really have to sit down and you have to really understand what are your strengths and weaknesses. But number one, What do you love? What are you passionate about? And then you start looking at your network and you say, I met this person 10 years ago. Have I kept in touch? Can I get back in touch? And number one, never just get back in touch with someone just because you need something. Establish a relationship with how can I help you first. But when you are looking to sort of make a career change, as we talked about before, keeping in touch with that network, taking a look at your Rolodex. Well, they don't even have Rolodexes anymore, do they? I do, but
I do too.
look at your contacts. Go back and say, this person had an influence on me. Can I let them know what I'm doing and get some feedback on it? So look at those contacts. Get yourself out and about to conferences, to meet other like-minded people. One of the big things I think that helps is work as a team. Find someone else who is maybe going through the same transition, and you play off of each other and say, I'm going to help your resume look good if you'll help me with mine. Can you proofread this? Can we practice interviewing with each other? But find someone who will really be honest with you about what works and what doesn't. I'm about to do an event with a number of women lawyers about your own personal branding. Now, all they think is they're great lawyers, they're professional, they're very well known in their field, but they don't understand that who they are is part of their business. And to talk about finding someone within the same business who can say, yes, we're going to do this together. It's like an exercise program. It's easier when you've got someone you've got to be held accountable and who's running right alongside you. So I would say find that partner, that teammate who could do something like that, that you learn together. And to take chances too. I'm sorry, there's another phone going off here.
That's okay.
So I apologize.
It's live theater, my dear. It's all good. What I love about that message is it also gives us permission to say you don't have to do it alone, right? Not only should you seek out others, but give your wisdom and your time and your expertise to others. So pay it forward.
Pay it forward, and pay it forward before you need it back. I think that it's so important to, when I meet someone, and I will give you an example. I live in Sonoma, California. I am living here. The nearest Mac store is 20-something miles away. There is a fellow who repairs computers. I came in and I said, I need a new headset for this great Skype interview I'm doing today. And he said, you know what, why don't you come do it in my office? I'm using his back office.
Oh, nice.
I'm sitting here. He helped me set everything up. But Jim is so great because I've given him advice about, listen, Jim, I see the people coming into his office. I said, why don't you have a recycling program where all of us who have all these, computer gadgets in our drawers, that we can recycle them. And we kind of work together and talk about, article ideas and things. And now he's helping me. And somewhere along the way, I'm going to help him back. But it's just a matter of finding like-minded people who really want to help each other. And that's the kind of person you should be. And take chances. I don't know. Jim and I might never have met, but somewhere along the way, I thought I can help him. I can help him market a little bit. I can do some other things. And it's just a lot of fun. And plus, I'm part of my community now. This is my new community and my new home.
And I like that. Think about it as community building. So that's a lovely way to look at it.
Yes.
So Sydnie, let's talk about the all elusive work-life balance. And I don't even care for that term because I think it just sets us up for unrealistic expectations. But you have been and continue to be a globetrotter with these really difficult schedules. And I'd love to dive in deeper and learn about how one functions getting up at 2 a.m. for those early morning broadcasts. But give us your take on work-life integration and how to have a happy, healthy life and the career piece.
Caroline, I absolutely agree. I don't think there's such a thing as work-life balance. I think that it's always going to be uneven, but it's how you look at it at the time you are in your life. This is where I am in my life now, and that's what I try to say on days when it's getting a little stressful. This is where I am right now. This is all I can do today, but I can do this tomorrow, or I need to leave that for yesterday. Yesterday is gone. Listen, I did an early morning news show for more than 10 years at different television stations. And when you get up at 2 in the morning and you're single and you'd like to have a dating life, sometimes it doesn't work out. And but what you do, I remember the first time I had this schedule where I was getting up at 2 and getting in the office at 3:30 or 4. I had blackout shades. I would go to bed religiously at 6 p.m., 5:30 to try to get my 8 hours sleep. And finally, after about a year and a half, I said, you know what, this isn't working for me. I'm not having a good time. And I said, well, if I go out at night, I may not get much sleep, but I will catch up somewhere else. But if there is something I really want to do, I'm just going to do it. I'm not a slave to the schedule. I try to just say, what is going to give me joy every day? And if it was something I wanted to do, fine. But if I knew I needed some sleep, I would make time for that. But as far as an early morning schedule, I think of it as being in the military. You know you need to get up and be somewhere at a certain time and just say, this is my life right now. I would lay out my clothes the night before, down to my underwear and everything else, and pantyhose and shoes, my earrings. So even if I was sort of half asleep and maybe I'd stayed out a little bit too late,
there's no
I could
question,
walk in my closet. Everything was right there. And if my earrings weren't there, I would forget to put them on. But I had the coffee maker on. Everything was pretty disciplined, but it kept my mind open for thinking about other things. But I had to have that discipline to say, whether you're with your mom's kids' school lunches, find a schedule and stick to it. I mean, that is my best advice. I learned to work holidays, but I was the kind of person where if I had to work Thanksgiving, I would go into my management and say, listen, my team is working Thanksgiving. Could we have Thanksgiving turkey brought in? And they go, but you work the early shift. You get off the show at 7 in the morning. I said, that's okay. It's Thanksgiving. I said, it's the thought that counts.
It's the thought.
And I would make sure turkey was there at 7 in the morning for my crew who would just love it. So just you work around the cards that you were dealt in life at that particular time. You know what? You play them, and you play them to the best of your ability.
Sydnie, I'd love to get your take on wellness, because as a busy journalist who had that crazy schedule, right? And it was often unpredictable with additional travel woven in there. How do you really honor your body and your mental well-being when you've got that intense a career? Any thoughts on that?
Caroline, there were times in my career where I have been when I've been so thin, people said, your head's bigger than your body. And then there have been other times where I go, okay, where did that 20 pounds come from? And it's just, I think every woman goes through it. But what I found, I've tried to, there were a couple of months I tried to get up at 1 in the morning to exercise.
Wow.
Now, because I thought, when am I going to fit it in otherwise?
Right.
But I found, again, it's the discipline. And it is just to say, when I finally sort of get fed up and say, I've got to change what I'm doing, I'm very good with lists and things, and I would almost make myself, like when you're in elementary school and they give you a star because you put away your books or something like that. I would almost get myself to where I would say, today I'm going to do this and I'm going to do it at this time. But you make it an appointment in your life because it's that important. So just as you would schedule anything else that was important, a doctor's appointment, I would schedule a time and say, this is the time I'm going to exercise, and this is the time I'm going to do this. And that I would it's important enough to make an appointment to exercise and say, okay, am I going to get a manicure or am I going to go to the doctor? But I'm going to exercise at this time. And it was tough to stick to it. But again, you find someone who's struggling with the same thing and you say, I'm doing this as a team. Teamwork is always so much more fun. There's always someone who maybe can do it better, but you can really, I think, learn, and you really grow from their energy. So to me, it's making a schedule and making a pact with myself saying, okay, this is just as important as anything else in my life. And truthfully, I know it's true. You exercise a little bit and mentally it just helps so much. It is so, so important.
I couldn't agree more.
To take that walk with that coffee or a cup of tea somewhere where it's quiet, to go look at your chickens. I have chickens now, and I go look.
That's
something
great.
To just clear my mind so that when I do sit in front of the computer, that I'm ready and I'm going to be totally engaged.
Good stuff. Sydnie, let's talk about giving back. I so appreciate your commitment to helping others on a consistent basis. And part of your your values and your particular personal and professional code is really giving back. So how do you find the time? And are there particular organizations that you gravitate toward? What's your concept of giving back?
For me, giving back means so many things. Caroline, I never had my own children. I always joke, I'm the world's oldest bride at 43 years old. I met a wonderful man and got married. But throughout my career, I made sure that I was out in the community because I felt like that was my way of giving back to the community at the time. That I felt like I was on television every day, but I wanted to be out in the community and I wanted to hear those voices and hear those stories. So I found myself being very involved with the Red Cross. Early in my career, I was involved in Junior League. Anytime someone needed someone to MC a program, I was always involved. These days, I'm involved. I'm on the board of the Asia Society of Northern California because of my time spent in Asia working and living. I felt like I really wanted to keep that connection and help other people understand the link between Asia and America. Now that I'm in a new community here in Sonoma, California, I want to get involved with like the Boys and Girls Club. I think it's really important to give young people a mentor or a voice of experience to say, you know what, this worked for me. Maybe it'll work for you, or don't do this. Think about doing this instead. There's a group here that I want to get involved with called FISH, Friends in Sonoma Helping, where immigrant families who are coming to this community who might be starting with nothing. I really feel strongly about having an encouraging word or helping in some form or fashion. And then, on a personal note, I wasn't blessed with children, but I find ways to help a lot of children in my life. A young girl I met in Louisiana who I bought her braces. I felt like she might, that she really needed some heavy dentist work, and I thought this could create an impact on her whole career and her whole life.
Right.
And for me, it was just a small way to say, you know what, I can make a difference in this young girl's life. And another one, I'm paying for tutoring. I'm thinking it's a small thing, but just like me, way so far ago that the woman wrote me a little letter saying, you have a voice and a gift and you should use it. And it was it was a little letter I kept, and it made such a difference. And so can I make that difference, however small, in someone else's life?
Well, you truly are making a difference and you are empowering those young people. That's wonderful. Sydnie, let's talk about your career trajectory. Certainly this extraordinary career as a television journalist and your life now with the business and consulting practice. And you are in transition and you're embracing every nuance. And I love this phrase. You talk about marrying what you do with what you love and helping others tell their story. So where do you see things going? What's the next chapter?
The next chapter for me, I think, is already happening, Caroline. I left full-time television about 4 years ago. And I say left, that's a very nice way of saying that you get escorted out the door. That's the way it happens sometimes in television. My contract was coming up, and a month before they said, we'd like you to leave. And I knew it was coming, and you can feel the winds of change, and I was prepared for it. But still, when you've done something for so long and you think, this is what I do, but it's not who I am. And that's what I would encourage women to remember. What you do is not who you are. You are made up of so many other things, and you cannot change other people's choices. You can change your reaction, though, to them. And I had taken the short walk off the long plank, as I say, or the long walk off the short plank, a couple of times in my career, and you find out who your friends are, who are there to support you. You find out what else you can do. And this last time, I said, 32 years I've had in this business. I said, there are a lot of things I can do, and mainly I can tell stories. And it doesn't have to be in front of a television camera. I can help other people tell their stories. And what I found is, nothing gives me greater pleasure in my heart than to see other people shine. And if that's what I can do, I can't tell you how that is going to happen in the world. Maybe it's through executive presence or media training, but along the way, can I talk to someone and say, how can I help them shine? And I'm always thinking that's bottom line. I can't tell you I'm always a consultant, I'm always a journalist, I'm always a media strategist. My goal is, how can I help them shine? So that's taking different forms. Well, whether it is media training or coaching, or last year I helped Christy Yamaguchi and Brian Boitano write a skating show. How can I help their performers shine? So I helped write the copy for their show, which was it was a lovely experience to meet, Dorothy Hamill and Brian Boitano and see these beautiful, beautiful skaters and be kind of behind the scenes. I loved the introductions that I wrote for them. How can I help them shine? I'm working with an executive who was very big in the search world, and now she wants to combine her passion of fashion and art and theater and say, how can I create a search firm that really focuses on this? So, we're looking at working on her website and her message. So it's just fun to really think about the strategy of helping other people shine. And so I wish I could have better than just media strategist or consultant. All I think of is, how do I help them shine?
Well, that's a beautiful way to put it. And I have seen you in action, so I can attest to the fact that you really do empower others to find their voice. And it's a lovely full circle, right? Because you were telling me in the beginning how your dear friend helped you find your voice. So I think that's a great look at what you do, Sydnie. You are
Well,
extraordinary.
Caroline, I have to tell this story because I never let an opportunity pass me by if I can. I mean, I can't tell you the very powerful men I've just met in circumstances and just asked out on dates just because I could. And they I guess either they were shocked or surprised, or they were interested. But we went out. We had great times. But the story I want to tell about you is that the first time I met you, it was at a conference, and I found out that you sang opera professionally in your previous career. And I asked you right then and there in the restaurant, I said, do you know the song from Johnny Schicchi, O mio babbino caro? You had the presence to stand up and you sang that song, and you didn't sing it in a whisper. You sang it as loudly and as grandly as you could, and the whole restaurant listened. And people clapped at the end. And I had to tell the story because I said, this is a woman who is comfortable in her own skin, and who, you own that part of your career, and that's not your career now, but you own that experience, and you have taken it along very gracefully and moved on into something else. And I thought, that's a lesson for all of us, that we own those experiences, but maybe that's not what we're doing now, but we own that, and we can take it along to wherever we're going. So I just want to thank you. I will always remember that. And I got to hear my favorite song in the middle of the restaurant.
It was an honor to sing that, and I thank you for the prompt, and you did help me find that voice that evening. So I thank you for that. Sydnie, you're a joy, and I have such great respect and admiration for you. Like I said, I've had the great pleasure of seeing you in action, and I know how you empower others, and I'm grateful, and I wish you tremendous success and joy in this next leg of your career and life journey. But let's talk about how we can find you. You've got a vibrant website, so please share that address so our listeners can follow you and communicate with you.
I do have a website, and it is sydniekohara.com. That's SYDNIE Kohara, KOHARA.com. Sydnie, who would have thought that my mother in the 50s would name me Sydnie? But she said it's SYD because of Sid Charisse. She thought I was going to have long legs, and I didn't come out with the long legs. But sydniekohara.com, anyone can find me there. And like I said, I'm always the kind, how can I help? I want everyone to shine.
Well, that is a fabulous mantra, my dear, and I'm so grateful that you are in my life. So thank you, thank you.
And thank you, Caroline. I am so impressed, the radio and the podcast and just seeing you on stage. So anyone who's listening, if you see Caroline, she will sing for her supper.
Uh-oh, the secret's out.
I love it. And it's a beautiful voice. So enjoy. I thank you so much. That was a wonderful experience for me. And thank you for this wonderful opportunity.
Thanks, Sydnie. Be well, and I hope I get to see you in person again soon. And I want to thank all of you for tuning into Your Working Life today, where my goal is to help you design your career destiny so it doesn't happen by default. True career and life satisfaction is possible, and it's time to embrace what you love doing so you can do more of it. I'm Caroline Dowd-Higgins. Take good care.